Welcome into DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts every single day. Rudo, AJ, and Jesse coming at you to talk trade rumors. It is 12 days till the trade deadline. 12 plus 9 is 21. Yep, that adds up. Okay, so it's getting there. We're getting there.
School.
Never do math live on air.
I think it's going to be hard for the Avs to have the biggest trade that happened in Denver this month, but maybe they'll try. Maybe they will try. Unfortunately, hate to really start things off on a damper note, I guess, but Patrick Kane's not happening, right? This is nonsense.
So that thing got put out there.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, okay. And so, being the responsible adult that I am, immediately was like, let's see if anybody that I know, and I'm not the world's most connected individual, but let's see if anybody that I talk to around the league that work for various organizations have thoughts on this. And I got 2 crying, laughing face emojis in response. So, well, I guess we'll just say that other folks aren't taking this so seriously yet, so I guess I won't be either.
I did also, I found it amusing because the quote that was, they called and said, hey, if you guys are at any point interested in moving on, we'd be interested in talking. Like, even the guy who reported it was like, it was a phone call conversation where it was like, hey, probably in the same way that the whole Byram thing came up with Vancouver, where it's like, was his name said on a phone call? Don't doubt it. But I put it in, I think it was my 5-on-5 from this last week. If anything like that were to even be on the table, Patrick Kane is a $10.5 million cap hit. I just can't imagine that conversation would even be had seriously until the offseason.
Oh, and not even that, but the price that you would have to pay to get him.
Yeah, right.
The amount of money owed to him. And I'm not sure, like, this is not like a Jonathan Taves deal where Taves is going to make like $4 million on his next contract. Patrick Kane's probably going to get another deal right in that range of $10.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So are you...
I was just going to magically make that cap work somehow.
Yeah, like are you giving him that deal and it's starting the same time that McKinnon's new deal does? Or... like, how does it work, right? Like, it would just be, is he just walking and you're just good with that? So, I'm just not, I'm good.
Okay.
I don't doubt this conversation in chat about what Friedman said about Byram is not a correct interpretation of what he said.
And has been actively denied that the implication was Byram wanted a fresh start.
Yeah. Byram's good. He just needs to get healthy.
Yep.
He's not looking around. He's not trying to get out. At least from anybody that I've talked to. He's not interested in that.
The wording on that part of the blog is funny. Like, I can see how someone would read the words that way. But yeah, that rumor was denied. That request was not denied. Although, so back to the Patrick Kane thing, that would be one way for Joe Sakic to one up George Payton.
True. There are not many pieces that would live up to a Russell Wilson trade, but something like Patrick Kane maybe would. There's a guy I want to talk about because we did leave him off of our trade deadline series.
It was like reading the Old Testament.
Because, and I do think the expectation
It's funny. We did 16 videos, and we could have done 16 more.
Yeah, we could have done 30 easily, but
We didn't even do a Patrick Kane.
True. We did not do a Patrick Kane one as Jesse breaks his mic.
Yeah.
But we talked about him very, very briefly, and I do think the expectation is he still ends up staying in San Jose. But TOMAS HERTL,
Yeah,
still a guy that's being talked about around the league.
the reason that I didn't want to do the HERTL video is because I know how San Jose is very serious about re-signing him. And if a team is going to make that legitimate of a run at bringing a guy back, they're probably going to get there. Like at that point, HERTL's going to have to want out, or his contract ask is going to have to be
Astronomical,
substantial, in a ridiculous fashion. So that's why we didn't do HERTL, and that's why I've kind of avoided that conversation. But I will say, if at some point that rubber does meet the road and he becomes available, it reminds me a little bit of when Francois Beauchemin became a free agent, because everybody expected he was going to re-sign in Anaheim. And then when he didn't, it changed that landscape. And teams that had been, including Colorado, that had been prioritizing other avenues, circled back and revisited that conversation, and it changed how the dominoes all fell. And if HERTL goes on the market, he's the best player available. He's basically as good as Claude Giroux, but several years younger, and does a lot of the same things.
That I know I talked to you about this off air, AJ, but I did want to ask Jesse too. If you are in that world and you're the Avs, HERTL or Giroux, who do you want more
At
HERTL.
the deadline?
Yeah,
probably HERTL. I mean, AJ, just the way that AJ just put that, he's very similar to Giroux, but
on the younger age.
I was going to say how many years younger is it?
6-7 years, I think.
6-7 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I still really like the idea of Claude Giroux here and AJ, I saw you were talking with Dario the other day. I guess this is the year I become an old school hockey guy. And I felt the exact same way about that hit. I was glad to see the three of us each separately on Twitter all took the same opinion of that hit. But there is just a part of me that still, because I don't know how realistic it would be for the Avs to be able to bring back HERTL, depending on what he wants, given that he is younger. There's part of me that still likes Claude Giroux because of that, the intangible stuff. He's been the captain in Philly. He is so clearly an emotional leader. He's got a history of taking his play to another level in the playoffs. And I just feel like he'd be such a good, like, emotional fit for this team.
I definitely agree with this point.
That there's part of me that still says maybe it's Giroux, but it's just so hard to pass on a player like TOMAS HERTL if he were to come available. Because how often do you get someone in in that age range, still in their prime, putting up the numbers that he's putting up, is such a stylistic fit for what the Avs do. It's really hard to pass that up, but there are still just things that I think that Claude Giroux brings that would just go so well with the way that this team is trending and what they're looking to do.
I will say HERTL's postseason numbers are good. Not great, but good.
So take that for whatever you want.
Yeah, just as an aside, since we're there's always like this conversation about, well, how does he do in the postseason, right? Like, okay.
And Giroux just got like just enough of that, like, kind of. I mean, he's a Philly guy, right? Like we've joked that Nazem Kadri just looks like a Flyer next season already.
Yeah.
And like Giroux just does have a little bit of that kind of mean, nasty, like him next to McKinnon and Rantanen. I just think gives that line. I mean, kind of the same element that it's got there with Landy, but now you've essentially just got Landeskog twice on that left side, and it's just there's part of that that's intriguing.
I tweeted out the video the other day. My favorite part of Giroux is his, like, when he's on the ice, his chirps are like, he's just totally monotone, like very calm. It was in the outdoor game against Pittsburgh where he's like, "What? That's a penalty!" And someone on Pittsburgh is like screaming in his face, and he's like, "You don't think that's a penalty?" Oh, well, I do.
I can't remember who it is, but there's a video of him cooing at someone.
Yeah, well, it was JVR back when he was with the
Yeah,
Leafs.
I was gonna say I want to say it was JVR, which is funny because now they're teammates. But yeah, calling him a pigeon and cooing at him.
Yep, he's got top tier chirps. Genuinely, I'm all about it.
He and Landy would fit in nicely together. They would be friends.
So, is this the real fit? The bench dynamics? Forget the locker room, forget the ice. We're talking about who's fits together on the bench now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, it all matters, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
It doesn't not matter.
HERTL, I think would be he's just a really, really good player. That's
True.
all. He's just a really good player.
What nationality is he?
HERTL?
Yeah.
He's Czech.
Okay, that's right. Yep.
So
Pavel Francouz, I'm sure he'd be in favor of that.
there'd be another Czech buddy. That is true. Anyway, AJ, you mentioned this the other day. Obviously, take everything with a grain of salt, but Avs allegedly having some interest in Scott Mayfield of the New York Islanders.
Yeah, so his name keeps popping up as I kind of look around and talk to some people. He keeps popping up as a guy that the Islanders, they're not, I don't want to say that they're like actively shopping him, because I don't think that they have to move him. He's on such a good contract, and they've hemorrhaged so much defensive talent over the last few years that I don't think moving him is a priority necessarily for the Islanders. But I do think that the teams that don't want to pay the stupid price being asked for Ben Sherratt
Sure.
are going to look at Scott Mayfield as like hey, here's a solid step down in terms of price, and not a step down, not really a step down in terms of quality of player though, which is funny because
Is that more?
the world has just
Ben
decided
Sherratt's
that
not
Ben
as good as I
Sherratt
think
is
he is. Yeah.
shit. I don't get it. I genuinely am confused by like the amount of love. I get like, for me, this is like the old school NHL rearing its head again, where they're like, oh, you're gearing up for the playoffs. You don't need a guy that can do anything with a puck whatsoever. You just need somebody that's mean and tough and physical. And, you just need King Neanderthal to come in and just every time he's on the ice. You don't need a hockey player,
Milan Lucic, is that you?
So, right, like that's exactly what I'm saying though. Like it's like Ben Sherratt had a good run during the postseason last year, and it's like, oh well, the whistles get swallowed, and guys like Sherratt get more valuable, and it's like, yeah, okay, like totally true, but also, people are drilling Sam Girard because he's a turnover machine. And it's like, what do you think guys like Ben Sherratt do with the puck?
Yeah.
Not much. I do want to talk about this defensive conversation a little bit more, but we are brought to you all by Athletic Greens. You can go get it today, and when you order right now, you can go to athleticgreens.com/avalanche, and they will give you a 1-year supply of vitamin D as well as 5 travel packs. So be sure to jump on that right now. Can't recommend Athletic Greens enough. It's genuinely great. You guys know we work in a bar, right? So I do my fair
share. Have you guys heard that we have a bar that we work out of?
Do my fair share of drinking working in a bar, and Athletic Greens helps me get up in the morning and not, feel like I had a bunch of drinks the night before. So if for nothing else, it can be a great hangover cure, but it's also extremely good for you as well. They have all sorts of great value with 75 high quality vitamins. They have minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and even adaptogens in their formula. It's just one scoop into 12 ounces of water every morning. You have it. You're healthier, makes you feel better. It's some of the best stuff out there. If you don't have time for breakfast, you can substitute for that as well. So Athletic Greens, really awesome stuff. Can't really spoil the beans here, but I do know that they work with some high-level athletes. So look, if professional athletes are using the product, you know it actually does what it says on the tin. So jump on that one. Go get it. Jesse has already stolen like 3 different people's Athletic Greens from the company because anyone who's not using it, he's like, yeah, I'll take it.
I got to reach out to vote still.
Yeah, his is still just sitting there. So jump in on it. Go get yourself some delicious Athletic Greens. Again, they're giving you a bunch of free stuff when you go to athleticgreens.com/avalanche. So jump on that. Take control of your health today. Get the free vitamin D and travel packs. Also brought to you by that other thing, Breckenridge Brewery. You just balance it with Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens in the morning, Breck Brew at night. Works out great for everyone. You know, I love the stuff. Can't go wrong with an Avalanche while watching an Avs game. They got the 2 for a brew promotion for you, but they really do have dozens of great flavors of beer. Unless you just don't drink beer, I guarantee you they have a flavor for you. So go to your local liquor store or use their Breck Beer locator online to find some Breck beer near you and go get yourself some delicious beer. Then, once you've got some beer, kick back and watch our Trade Deadline Target series. There are 8 videos out so far, 2 more coming out today, including one on Jonathan Drouin, which I know the Avs fan base always kind of loses their mind when that trade gets brought up for the Avs. So tune into that one at 3 p.m. Mountain today and go scroll through all of them if you want a more of an in-depth look at a bunch of guys out there on the market that we're probably not going to talk too much about today, but that's because you have those videos to go watch. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook.
This dude's worried about the Avs' undersized defense that has exactly 2 defenders under 6 feet tall. And one of them is Cale Makar,
who doesn't play undersized at all.
Yeah.
And who is exactly 6 feet.
I think he's officially listed at like 5'11". And the last time he was properly measured was probably the combine.
When he was 17.
Yeah. It was when he was, I think, put it at 5'11". Point being, the Avs have exactly 1 small defenseman.
5'11", you're right.
And it's Sam Girard.
Yeah. Devon Taves, not small. EJ, not small. Jack Johnson, not small. So.
Yeah, even Ryan Murray is like 6'1".
Bowen Byram, if he gets back, not small.
To answer the question, do the Avs even consider giving up first-round picks? Yeah. Yes. Like, not only do they consider that like, take all of them. Take all of them. Well, who cares?
The topic I wanted to get to, if you're looking at improving your defense in a significant way, the conversation starts with a first-round pick, right? Certainly seems like that's the way the market is getting set.
So, actually, I'm glad you brought this up. Because I don't think I agree. I think the more that we're getting into this, you're talking about which teams are seriously looking to improve.
Sure.
Which are the contenders that you're looking at in throughout the NHL right now that have the room to really make a big move here?
Pretty much in the West, it's pretty much Colorado. Maybe you're saying Calgary on the outside of that.
Well, and Calgary made its move.
Yep.
It has very, very, very little cap space remaining, and it has all kinds of contract trouble this summer.
Sure. But you look around the rest of the West, and you're like, yeah, Minnesota has cap space, but how real are they as far as being in the running? Because you look in the East, and like you're talking about, there's 4 teams, maybe Carolina, Florida, Tampa. Maybe you could throw Toronto or Pittsburgh in on that list too.
So we're talking let's say 6 teams here.
If we're being generous, sure.
Yeah, if we're being generous, we get to 6. How many teams are trying to get assets for players?
More than 6.
Really. So you've got Montreal is selling.
Montreal, Arizona, Philly.
Arizona, Philly, okay.
Seattle.
Definitely Seattle. Anaheim just put all of its free agents on the market.
Yep. Chicago.
Okay.
This is actually going to be the topic of power rankings for this week, so I'm actually glad we're getting this out of the way.
There you go.
You guys are helping me out.
Things start to get a little murkier after that, but New Jersey's willing to sell their older players, certainly.
Sure. Columbus is kind of in the middle zone as well.
Yep.
You're also looking at Winnipeg.
Yep.
Is probably a team that's just too far out of it now, and it's going to have to. Are they going to lose this many? Are they going to lose their free agents, or are they going to try and get something for them?
Right.
Is what I'm saying. So we're probably looking at, let's say, 10.
Sure.
10 sellers, 10 teams that view themselves as sellers. You know what we
Hard
call
sellers.
that? Buyer's market, baby.
Mhm.
Buyer's market. Because those 10 teams aren't getting first-round picks for all their guys.
True.
So,
so
add
many
the
picks
Islanders
to
to
go
that
around.
list. We're talking about Scott Mayfield. Add the Islanders to that list.
Yep.
So,
It is what it is. At a certain point, especially, I think, as you inch closer to the deadline or on deadline day, as deals start getting done, instead of seeing a giant bidding war on guys, you might see hey, we're the only person bidding on this guy, so you can take what we're giving you.
And this is where the Sherratt, Scott Mayfield, stuff like that, where it's like, hey, we'll give you a second-round pick, and we'll give you Sabo Ranta for Scott Mayfield.
Yep. Going to be pretty hard to say no to that when there's nothing else out there, for sure.
Well, and it's like, okay, well, we're really holding out for a first-round pick. And it's like, okay, 10 minutes before the deadline, you let me know. Did you get that first-round pick?
Well, and it's kind of the opposite of what we've seen in a couple of the past years where it goes the opposite, where you have guys where you go, I cannot believe that fetched a first-round pick. But to the point that you're making, right, Barclay Goodrow. You sit there and you say
Barclay Goodrow was like a first round pick with an asterisk, but yeah.
But like you sit there and you go, how did that player fetch a first round pick? It's because that was the only player at that position or at that, that side of the ice that 5 different teams were in on. And if you wanted him, you had to give him a first round pick. There's a lot of those types of guys. You're talking about Scott Mayfield, Ben Sherratt. There's guys like that to be had. And there's actually better guys than that to be had. So, you want a first-round pick? I'm going to go check in on Mark Giordano instead.
Right. You're talking, Mark Giordano and Justin Braun, like Calvin DeHaan. Like, look at all these guys that are just falling out of we're just off the top of our heads. Now Anaheim opens up the door on Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson. Josh Manson is a guy that I would seriously keep an eye on because if Colorado's looking at Scott Mayfield, there's no way they're not going to seriously consider Josh Manson, who's big and physical and mean and nasty and plays the right side.
Dude, so going all the way back to the Patrick Kane conversation that kind of kicked it off. I don't think there is a name out there that Joe Sakic isn't checking in on. Like
there really shouldn't be because there's very few guys out there. Like there's some like Brock Besser. Is he available? Neat. Like, I don't think that moves Colorado's needle, right? Like, I don't think that they're calling in on a oft-injured, one-dimensional goal-scoring wing. As good a player as Brock Besser is, it's like, man.
I mean, I think especially when you hear what it's going to cost to get that type of player.
Well, and like, not even considering any of that, but I'm just talking player type. Like, Brock Besser, you're like, okay, no thanks. But JT Miller, TOMAS HERTL, Claude Giroux, guys who can win you some face-offs, guys that can play throughout your forward lineup, top line, all the way down into your third line if you needed it to. Like, let's be real here. If Claude Giroux came to Colorado and ended up on the third line's going to get played a lot more than it currently is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're talking. You're talking like there are very few guys out there that you would say the Avs just don't need that guy. You know, that guy's not going to help them. Now, if you look at a guy like Damon Severson, guy that I really, really like, you could look at him and say stylistically he's a good fit for Colorado. Is he maybe a little too redundant because of the way he's more of a classic puck moving type that's not going to be nearly as reliable in his own end, has his off nights, things like, and is not an overly physical guy. So it doesn't really fill a need for you, but is more of a samey type of player.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe you move at you talk about that, right? Like, okay, those are the guys that you could maybe prioritize last.
Sure.
But other than that, like all these defensemen that we've talked about, Giordano, DeHaan, Mayfield, Braun, all of those guys you could look at and go with no Bowen Byram, couldn't they help Colorado's defense? And the answer is yes.
Luke Shen, our trade deadline video, but next to
Luke
Drew
Shen.
today, so could be sure to go check that out too.
And my other thing too is I agree with a lot of what you just said. I don't think that Joe Sakic is interested in every player that's out there, but just with where he's at, where this team is at, I don't doubt for a second though that during the phone call about JT Miller, that he hasn't at least said, and then just out of curiosity, what are you guys looking for to get for a guy like Brock Besser? Like he's checking in on all of these guys.
You never pass up an opportunity to get better, right? Like,
right.
Yeah. But there are some years where you're just like, this isn't our year. We're not interested in that conversation. Right. We're not. Yep. That is not Colorado's position this year.
100%.
This is their year. They know they've got to be involved in absolutely every conversation. If a player is available and we believe that they can help them, Colorado has to make that phone call.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they say, hey, look, we're great. We're really, 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 really good as we currently are. But we can clearly get better. There are clear aspects of our team that can improve. We've probably played a little over our heads here. We've probably over-accomplished a little in the last 2 months. But we're really good. We're in a great position. We can still get better, and we have assets, not necessarily to burn. They're not the Kings, but we have assets to spend wisely.
And the reality is the vast majority of these conversations probably end pretty quickly with that. Yeah, we're not that interested in acquiring that guy, or yeah, we're not going to pay that price, or oh, you're not that interested in moving him, and that's fine. That's just part of the process.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Check on everything. And AJ, I love what you just said there. And I was looking at a lot of Broncos Twitter yesterday, obviously.
Oh, so fun.
And Ryan, our DNVR's own Ryan Koenigsberg, I thought just had the perfect kind of viewpoint towards the deal. Now, obviously the Broncos aren't in the same spot that the Avs are where, you need to add this one piece, but they made a move that they had to make. They had to make it.
Yeah.
They had to do something. They had to solve what was their biggest issue.
Cost didn't matter.
Right. They paid, some people don't think that they paid that much, but they gave up a lot of assets. And Ryan I think he tweeted out like 3 or 4 times, like, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that is where the Avs are at. And people need to understand, again, it's hard to get your head there because for a decade, everything about the Avs was acquire assets, draft, develop, young guys,
value prospects, value tomorrow.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. You got to be hitting on draft picks. You need to acquire draft picks. You need to, you're selling off guys. You need to be bringing back in young prospects with NHL upside, young NHL. They are not there anymore. It is, you have to be cognizant of it. You're in a salary cap league. You need to have cheap contracts that can matriculate up to your main roster to keep you relevant. All of that is true. The Avs are in win right now. Right now. We are not worrying about what our first round pick in 3 years is going to do. We are worried about what this NHL team does in the spring. That is what we are worried about. And so they are going to move on from prospects. They are going to move on from picks. And that is how this is supposed to work. All those picks and prospects are to get your team to this point. And then once you're in this point, it is on the NHL club to make the moves to get them over the finish line. And that is where the Avs are at. I get it. People are saying, oh, well, we have first round picks that may help us down the road. Great. Not worried about down the road. We're worried about May.
When the time comes to win a Stanley Cup, all of the future's problems are tomorrow's problems. They're future use problems.
I mean, this is go for it territory. I'm not saying you've got to burn the house down and you have to get rid of Justin Barron, Sean Behrens, and Drew Hellison, and first round picks, and Oscar Olsen. You don't got to do all that shit.
I mean, it's.
But I'm saying, if half of that list that I just gave you, if 2 of those 4 assets are gone, 2 of those 5 assets are gone by the deadline, I'm all for it as long as it's like you just have to make good decisions.
Right. And it's a sliding scale, right? If you
like
get rid of
HERTL, Miller, Giroux, that's what that shit is used for.
Even if you get rid of all of those dudes, the conversation then just becomes, okay, you better be right. You better win this Stanley Cup. But if you do, nobody cares.
Right.
Right.
I mean, the extra 3rd round pick that's going to Arizona if the Avs win the Cup this year because of the Kemper deal. So what?
Yep. You won a cup.
The Arizona's going to be Colorado's biggest fan in the come postseason. Although they should have cup conditions to all kinds of picks.
They're rooting for everybody on that one.
We're rooting for everybody. Somebody's giving us an extra pick, baby.
Right. But it is just interesting because, like you said, AJ, you don't have to get rid of all of that stuff. You don't. But even
next year's deadline to go for it too. You got to keep it up there.
But to Rudo's point, like, it is one of those things. It's so funny where if they did get rid of all, first round pick, second round pick, their top 3 prospects, and then they won a cup, it's like, wait, Justin who? Oh, Barron. That's right. Yeah, he was here. That was dope. Again, this is not me openly advocating for them to move on from Barron, Olsen, multiple firsts and multiple seconds at this deadline, but that is kind of, we are officially in Pierre Lacroix territory.
No one sees the ring and asks who you gave up for it. Like, they just see the ring. Okay.
Oh my God. Yeah, here, Jesus. Now you're gonna have everyone think that I hate Eric Johnson and Justin Barron.
What does Jesse have against right-handed defensemen?
But if you want to watch the Avs run down the stretch of the regular season here, you can get a Vaca TV for just $25 a month. They got altitude for you plugged right in to your television, just like watching cable or direct TV or whatever, except for way cheaper and way easier. So jump on that. You don't have to jump through all the silly hoops to try and watch games through piracy or otherwise. Instead, go to evoca.tv/DNVR. That's evoca.tv/DNVR. Get all set up with altitude. And when the Rockies return, they'll have AT&T Sports Network as well as national channels. So they got you covered. Jump on it with Evoca TV. With the money you save, maybe throw a couple of bucks DraftKings way. You can go right now, bet, I believe it's $5 on any of the conference championship college basketball games. If you pick a winner, you get $200 in free bets. 40-1 odds right there. Just $200 to mess around with if you pick a winner. So jump in there, go earn $200 that you should. I'm going to promote this every single time. It's not worth it anymore, probably, but it's still a good bet to put all of that money on Cale Makar to win the Norris. You just won't win as much anymore. So easy money. Jump in there. Go have some fun with DraftKings. They can bet on all sorts of other nonsense too, whether it's college basketball or darts or cricket or hurling. Some of the sports, like, if you just keep an eye on all of the sports lists on DraftKings Sportsbook, it's a good way to actually learn about new sports that you've never heard about before. So do that if you want to have some fun with it. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Must be I already said 21 or older. Must be a new account. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Of course, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. So I did kind of want to go through with you guys we've established there are not very many buyers in the market, right? Colorado, we've talked about a lot. They could reasonably acquire both a forward and a defenseman that actively makes their starting lineup better, right?
Mhm.
Is that the same story around the league for these other buying teams, or do you think there are some specific targets for teams like Carolina, teams like Florida?
Well, I think Florida is a different beast because they are flush with cap space. They've got picks. They are in a weird spot where they've got the advantage over all the other contenders, where they can basically say, we can beat any offer that any other team makes.
If they want a guy, they can just go get him. Yeah.
Yep. Like they can just say, okay, that's what you guys are offering. Great. We'll match that, and then plus we'll give you
whatever,
another top prospect or whatever, because they're drowning in assets right now.
Yep.
Like they are kind of where Colorado was pre-Kemper deal.
Sure.
Where you were like with the first round pick with Connor Timmins, you're looking at it and you're like, they've got some stuff here, you know.
Yep.
So they're definitely in a very, very good position to basically top any offer for any of the guys that are out there, which to me just says they're the team that I bank on doing something irresponsible. If part of it, I wonder if it's just because the enthusiasm of we've never really been in this position before. Let's make this count.
Yep. You only get so many cracks at this, right?
So. We've tried for 30 years to be this good. We finally are. Go.
I think they really want to beat Tampa. I think they really not beat Tampa.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I think they want to beat Tampa, to be honest.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Right.
Isn't that what everybody's looking at? Going, yeah, please, multiple
one of those, please.
And,
yeah. No,
can we get a fucking bow parade in Denver? As the ultimate flex.
Dude, seriously, out at Chatfield, Cherry Creek,
whatever.
No,
spread it out.
Just haul it down Colfax, all right, on the trailer. A bunch of boats.
That's right. Boats on trailers. That's a lot of wheels.
Yeah. Hey, very few doors. No, but I do. I agree with you. I think Florida is going to do something that's going to make everyone. Because I just don't. I think they're going to do everything in their power to knock out Tampa if they meet in the playoffs, and that's going to be like their own little mini Stanley Cup. Got to beat Tampa.
As long as they don't make the Cup Finals, it's fine. So, sure, on the East, it's Florida's market to do what they want with. In the West, do you really expect anyone to try and make a big splash besides Colorado? Do you see someone like Minnesota saying, F it?
They have to.
No, I don't see Minnesota so much as I do St. Louis, because St. Louis knows. St. Louis, they know that they have kind of a weird mixture of talent where their younger guys are great and they should continue to be great, but they have a lot of money tied up in older cats, and you know.
Sure.
I think St. Louis knows, like, hey, what I don't understand about St. Louis is why they're lurking in Claude Giroux conversation. Claude Giroux is great, but is he a defenseman? Did I miss something? Does he fix Jordan Binnington? Are they really going to roll with Ville Husso in the postseason, or is Ville Husso just what they needed to get them stabilized during the regular season? So because Jordan Binnington is shitting the bed.
Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah, like would they be a Marc-Andre Fleury team? That's it. I hadn't even thought about that, but okay, sure. I don't know where they're going to get the money.
Yeah, I was going to say, and to see them try for the third time in their franchise's history to do the goalie at the deadline thing. Yara Halak, Ryan Miller, and then if they tried to do it this year, it's like...
I don't think Halak was a deadline, was he?
Thought he
I
was.
thought he was a summer. Doesn't matter.
I'll find out.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Either way, it'll be the third time they've tried to do something like that. Minnesota is one that I could see them trying to do something with on a rental player, just because I think they probably know this is going to be their best kick at the can for the next few years.
Well, they're going to be they're Minnesota's in the weirdest spot, right?
Right, because I don't know if they're trying to get rid of a lot of assets, because like I was just saying a minute ago, they are going to need those cheap contracts, those cheap impact guys, those high end picks. So I'm torn on what I think they're going to do, because I could see them going either way, and I could see the reasoning for either one. Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying, AJ?
No, that's where I think Minnesota's in the weirdest spot. We all know that their tax bill essentially is coming due. That they're in cap trouble for the next several years. There doesn't appear to be a clever way around this thing. But you're also talking about they need those EOCs. They need those assets. They need their young guys. They need Marco Rossi. They need Matt Boldy. Now, obviously, those guys wouldn't be pieces that they would move, but they are going to need the secondary pieces, the Adam Beckmans of the world.
Right.
The Kalen Addison. They're going to need those guys. But
even the picks, can they really start dipping into that type of
how
capital?
aggressively can they dip into that pool? And really, like, what's the thing that they need the most? They're pretty good on defense. They've got Brodin and Spurgeon signed for the next decade. Dumba has only got one more year left on that deal, and you just assume he'll probably re-up it in the $9 million range, which is the in vogue defenseman contract now. Like, where do they go? Where do they go? Their deadline, I think, is going to be a fascinating exercise for Bill Guerin, because I just don't knowing what's coming.
Maybe
it's just such a fascinating. They're my team to watch. They're the team I've always said makes they should be the one that aggressively goes for Fleury.
I was going to say maybe even there's someone who could be interested in like a Varley or someone with an extra year on that deal.
Wait, who are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
Minnesota.
Oh.
Varley makes less sense unless Talbot goes the other way.
Well, yeah, my assumption was Talbot would be on the way.
If Talbot goes the other way, a Varley Talbot makes sense for
swap.
Both sides.
Yeah.
So one, Euro Halak, you're right, was the summer after his miracle playoff run with the Canadiens. So good call on that. The Fleury one is so interesting though, because the reports are that he told Chicago, unless you're sending me somewhere that has a legitimate shot, that he doesn't want to go because his family's settled in Chicago.
Yeah.
Everyone's there. The kids are there. They're in school. And he's saying, I don't want to go be a mercenary somewhere else and leave them here for 2 months unless I feel like I'm coming home with a ring or I have a good shot at it.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I just don't know if he would agree to go.
I don't either.
To a team like Minnesota.
That's the wrinkle with Minnesota, especially because they've sunk in the standings where they're no longer clearly second place in the Central, where they had plenty of cushion. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but
they've yo-yoed in and out of
gone.
Wild card, yeah.
So that cushion's gone, and they've fallen all the way back, and St. Louis is now in second place. So I agree with you in that I don't know that Fleury would agree to that, and so maybe he doesn't, and this is a moot point. I'm just putting the piece together and saying I think that makes a lot of sense because Minnesota has plenty of cap space to absorb that contract today.
And if they want to push, goaltender is a weakness for them.
Yeah, goaltender is like the one thing that you could point at their roster and say easy upgrade. Now, again, let's be real here. Marc-Andre Fleury hasn't been any good in Chicago this year. And I know everybody's going to throw their hands up and be like, but the Blackhawks are bad. And I get it. I understand. I would also say that Fleury's poor play is part of the reason why they're bad. But we don't ever look at things like that. We always just say, well, he's a good player no matter what. He's just on a bad team. When he goes to a good team, he'll be good again.
All right, so do you want to hear – I was having this conversation yesterday because someone brought this up to me. Because the Avs goaltenders have had 4 average to below average games, so suddenly it's a huge crisis again, despite them being maybe the top tandem in the NHL for 3 straight months. These 4 games have now obviously overridden all of that. And someone was talking about, well, why don't you just go bring in Fleury? He's a proven playoff guy. And I said, hold that thought. Let's journey back a little bit here to Marc-Andre Fleury's playoff career. 2008, 2009, phenomenal with the Pittsburgh Penguins, takes them to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals.
Keep in mind that's over a decade ago.
Yep. Wins in 2009 and was great. Then for about 10 years was meh. Pretty average. They got him in. They never really made it that far. He has some injury problems, loses the starting job to Matt Murray, a rookie who then goes on to win the Stanley Cup. The next year, they come back. Matt Murray has some injury problems. Marc-Andre Fleury gets to start in the postseason, eventually loses that job back to Matt Murray once he comes back because Fleury got the first couple starts after Matt Murray returned to the team and eventually played his way back onto the bench. Matt Murray goes on to win another Stanley Cup. Pittsburgh makes him available for expansion. They valued Matt Murray over Marc-Andre Fleury. Great year for Fleury. Takes Vegas on a miracle run to the Stanley Cup Finals in a year where every last thing went right. That for an organization, anything that could have gone right for an organization went right for Vegas that year. The next year, they lose in round 1 to the San Jose Sharks. And then the Vegas Golden Knights are so overconfident in how amazing and great Marc-Andre Fleury is that they bring in Robin Lehner. Then over the next two postseasons, it becomes this split of who is starting, Fleury or Lehner. And can someone tell me, because I genuinely don't remember, who ended up finishing the Montreal series for Vegas? Was it Lehner, or did Fleury play all the way through?
I didn't watch that series because I was afraid of being around sharp objects at the time.
Yeah,
but the bubble year, Lehner played.
Yeah, Fleury
Almost
only
all
played
of it.
4 games
Yeah.
the bubble year.
Yeah.
and so there is a little bit, I think, of kind of a false idea of this like elite playoff performer that Marc-Andre Fleury is because of the one miracle run to the Cup year where he was phenomenal. And he was great last year in the regular season. He won the Vezina.
Yeah, he was awesome.
So
Yeah, he was great. But I don't know if I fully buy
to back you up here, his career playoff numbers, his save percentage career is only a .912 in the playoffs, which is good, but it's not anything special. And yes, he does have those years where it's like, oh, if he gets hot again, sure. But you could say that about literally any goalie in the world. If they get hot
Any
in the
goaltender on the planet. If he gets hot, he's dangerous.
Avs fans know who Darcy Kemper is because twice in the playoffs, he's done that to the Avs.
Yep.
2 times he's done that to the Avs in the playoffs. One time he beat them, and the other time his team was just not good enough to beat him. But people knew who Darcy Kemper was when the Avs brought him in because he's performed phenomenally against the Avs in the playoffs.
Darcy
Again, he hasn't
Kemper,
ever
career playoff save percentage, .913. Granted, I understand there's a sample size difference there, but I'm just saying.
For sure. I was going to say, he doesn't have a ring. He hasn't made a run to the final, so I'm not trying to say that. But to act like you go from him to Marc-Andre Fleury and it's this immediate guaranteed run to the finals, and someone in chat did confirm, Robin Lehner finished the playoffs for the Golden Knights last year.
A year where the dude won the Vezina.
Right. And so it's one of those
everybody,
things
you see, the thing with Marc-Andre Fleury is that everybody likes Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really easy to just be like, he's great. I love that guy.
Awesome. Yeah.
There's a lot of pockmarks in his career. A lot of them. It's weird that he's looked at as some like surefire, no doubt about it Hall of Famer, because when he got to Vegas, that was not the conversation.
He was made available in an expansion draft.
Yeah. Like, he got to Vegas for a reason, remember?
He got his job stolen by a guy who was waived this year.
He's been moved for nothing twice. 2 times. Marc-Andre Fleury has changed teams in exchange for nothing. Literally nothing. Not an asset has come back the other way. I'm not saying Marc-Andre Fleury isn't great. He's a reigning Vezina winner. He's a very good goaltender, an extremely likable guy. And personally, I thought Pittsburgh was making a mistake when they exposed him over Matt Murray. But twice in his career, Marc-Andre Fleury has been given away for free.
That's crazy.
So it's not, he's just not this like prophecy that a lot of people. Prophecy is not right. You know what I'm trying to say. He's just not, like you said, not this surefire. He comes in, wins the job, whatever. I'm a big fan of Marc-Andre Fleury. I thought maybe it would have been interesting had they brought him in before they, went and brought in Kemper.
Yeah,
I thought he was an interesting option. But it's just, everyone's saying, oh, Darcy Kemper's had a couple so-so games. Go bring in Marc-Andre Fleury and everything is fixed. I just don't know if that's reality.
You can't reasonably expect to get a better goaltender than Darcy Kemper out of him if you were to go
$7 million for a salary. You've got to find a way to make that work. Even if they retain, all right, now you got $3.5 million. Okay. Can you convince me that he's even an upgrade over Darcy Kemper right now? The answer is no. I don't know why we've spent this much time on it. Just because, like,
that's what the people want to talk about.
It's just not a realistic conversation, I don't think. Look, if the Avs could get him completely for free, dude, fine. I'm not above it. But if it's not completely for free, then if what else? The $3.5 million, right? If they retain half of it, that $3.5 million, where else could they have spent that on their roster?
Fleshing out your forward core or picking up that number 4.
Which defenseman are you not getting because you did that? If you're looking at Chicago's route, would you rather have Marc-Andre Fleury or Calvin DeHaan right now?
DeHaan.
Yeah, me too. Because again, to your point, I just don't see how this year's version of Marc-Andre Fleury is by any stretch an upgrade over what they've gotten out of Darcy Kemper. And the numbers would say that it's not only not an upgrade, but you're probably taking a step back.
Like, hey, maybe we revisit this Fleury stuff in free agency.
Summer.
Right?
So that's what I was going to say. If they decide they don't want to do Kemper and they want to bring in Fleury this summer, great. Give him a 2-year deal. Have him come be the number 1 as he rides off into the sunset. Great. It makes the same amount of sense as them bringing in Patrick Kane at the deadline. You're like, I mean, if you really, really, really want to pull that off right now, great. But I just don't see how that makes any sense.
Okay.
In season.
Not the conversation I thought we were going to have in this period, but
I mean, it started with Minnesota and it spiraled.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess going through Marc-Andre Fleury's story.
That's what the people are here for.
All I know now is that it's a 100% absolute fact that they're going to trade for a package of Patrick Kane and Marc-Andre Fleury before March 21st.
Because we've expressed enough confidence that it's not going to happen.
Right.
Okay. You got any banger secrets you want to let the world know about the trade deadline, or are we out of here?
I mean, were there other Avs things that we wanted to talk about? Were there other rumors that were out there that we wanted to talk about instead of a made-up one that not necessarily made up, but like, I don't know what's going to happen with goaltending. We talked about Fleury and mentioned no other goaltender out there. Yeah. Like he's the only guy on the market.
We did a whole goaltending show if you want to talk about it.
True.
I'm not getting into that again.
Byram rumors are Byram's. I will do something extreme on air if Byram gets traded.
I
don't
actually
think he's
almost
going anywhere.
the other day I was actually going to say I'll boil down some of my Crocs and eat one if they trade Bowen Byram at the deadline. But then I was like, you know what? it's just likely enough that I don't know if I want to. And by just likely enough, I mean like it's on the radar of could happen.
In the like single-digit percentages.
Right. But I was like, I like my Crocs too much, and I don't want to have to actually do that if lightning strikes and something crazy happens.
It doesn't really feel like the Avs have had a lot of substantiated rumors around, right? There's been a little bit of talk about JT Miller. Obviously, they've been tied heavily to Claude Giroux. But a lot of the smaller pieces, it does feel like nothing is really bubbled up to the surface when it comes to the Avs besides the big names.
Yeah, one thing that Friedman talked about last week on 32 Thoughts, or it actually may have been Monday, was he said that there is a bit of frustration from some of these seller teams because a lot of the buyers are wanting to wait till they get closer to deadline. One, your cap hit is bigger than, or your cap space, you have more of it come deadline day. And there are a lot of teams, Anaheim, it sounds like, is maybe finally resigning themselves to seller mode, but they were another team that for a lot of this season was saying, well, we're in it enough. What do we want to do? You got a team like Edmonton, you've got teams like Vancouver, trying to figure out what it is exactly they're doing. So I just think that there's still a lot of feeling out going on, and sellers want to get on making some trades, and buyers are like, we'll wait. And as long as everyone is content waiting.
If you're a buyer, why are you doing the deal now? Like, yeah, you can get ahead of the market and you can kind of wait, or you can kind of set the tone and get a guy that you want. But what you don't want to do is commit assets and commit to this is our path forward. And then a week from now, somebody, you trade a bunch of assets for
way overpay for something, yeah.
And then a week from now, you have one of your top 3 defensemen blows out a knee, and now you need to go and spend assets trying to replace that defenseman. Boy, sure wish you had waited on the luxury and forward when you could. You want to. There's still 2 weeks worth of stuff to happen. You want to see how things play out before then.
And as we've kind of come full circle here, because there's 5 teams that are so far ahead of everyone else, these teams can afford to wait 3 games. They don't need those extra 4 points or whatever in the standings to get into the playoffs or to make that big difference for them. So,
yeah, I mean, you're talking, especially every team out east has pretty much made it.
Yep. It's all locked down, essentially.
Like, realistically, I know Columbus has been hot lately, and Columbus is still 12 points out.
Yep.
So
it's not close.
Yeah. So like the East is decided. Those 8 teams are just shuffling. They're jockeying for position right now, but they're shuffling around, trying to figure out what they.
Even then though, you're looking at the standings and you're like, Carolina's pretty comfortable in the Metro. Yeah, Pittsburgh and New York are going at each other for the 2 seed, but Florida, they're pretty comfortably ahead of Toronto. Tampa's there.
But I mean, we're still talking with 25 games to go. A 5 or 6 point lead is not.
It's not a given by any stretch of the imagination.
Certainly not insurmountable, but those 8 teams have totally separated. Is the point, and Carolina's probably comfortable at the top of that division, but that's really it. Like Carolina and Colorado are the comfortable division leaders. After that, everybody is still fighting for things. Calgary is probably comfortable over LA just with the games in hand advantage as well as the points. But you're talking the entire Pacific Division. Every team in the Central that I was comfortable with has had a bad 10-game stretch. St. Louis 5-3-2, Minnesota 3-7, Nashville 4-6. Dallas at 7-2-1 has caught all those teams.
Yep.
So
I tweeted out on.
You're just like it's ridiculous to see that this. It's still like the bloodbath that it is, but I mean, like,
With
I
a
guess
couple of teams that
Vancouver
are
could
just
talk
like
themselves
LOL.
into it. Like, I guess Vancouver could say, hey, we're only 5 points out. Winnipeg could say, hey, we're only 7 points out. But really, there's still some dream in there that has to take place for them to talk themselves into seriously being
and another 4 or 5 games in the next 2 weeks. All of a sudden, those teams will be like, okay, we're out of it now.
Yeah, I mean, if it goes, hey, we're only 5 back, and then 2 weeks pass, and all right, we're 11 back, or hey, we're 5 back, now we're 1 up, then it changes those approaches. No, Andrew Kopp probably isn't available from Winnipeg anymore. Paul Stastny's probably not looking around, right? But I do think that's why it makes sense for I'm sure Arizona and Montreal and Seattle are like, come on, let's just get to it. Let's get to this. I want to know how many picks we're gonna have, and so we can allocate all of our scouting resources and blah 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 blah. Yeah, I would totally imagine that Caleb wants to trade Byram. He has the worst takes of anybody on the planet. That's the most predictable thing that's happened today.
I tweeted out on January 21st, Eastern Conference playoff race is over. Only thing left to be decided is seeding.
Yeah.
And that point gap has only widened. The Eastern Conference has been so weird because it's so good at the top. It's such a bloodbath at the top.
Yeah.
And then literally halfway through that conference, it's just the worst teams in the league.
Gigantic cliff. Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible. Terrible lump of teams. And then a really good group of teams at the top. Such a weird a mix of teams this year out east.
Well, Columbus, I mean, you look at, I was talking about how Columbus, they've been hotly and they're still 12 points back. Columbus wouldn't even be all that close to a postseason position in the West. They'd be behind Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
So it's crazy. It's crazy to me, the split that they have out there. Like that comfort of like, yeah, we made the postseason.
Okay.
Like all 8 teams feel like the Avalanche do. Yeah, we're in. We're good.
Yep.
We're solid.
Cruising. Yeah. We have completely derailed it even further somehow at this point. So I guess we're going to wrap up the show here.
I mean, off days, man.
Yeah, it's what it is. It's what it is.
Friday, the next off day is Friday because we have the battle for the President's Trophy tomorrow.
Yep.
And then Friday is Roast My Roster Day where we get to dunk on people.
Yep. Go over to Cap Friendly, get your submissions in. Make sure you put DNVR in the title of your roster submission.
Did you see people were putting their bad food takes in the title?
Oh my God.
I was like, this is awesome. This is written better. You guys are the best.
Definitely do that too. Yeah, we'll be roasting those on Friday. So be sure to get your responses in. We will all each be doing a response as well. So should be fun. Looking forward to it on Friday, but we will be back tomorrow. We got the full slate for you. Pregame, watch along, and postgame for you. So be sure to tune in then. Until then, we'll talk to you on the next one.